In the heart of Lagos, Nigeria, there exists a secret that would shatter everything you think you know about love, sacrifice, and identity. This is the story of two sisters born as one, cursed with an impossible choice, and the man who would unknowingly fall in love with both of them. But before I tell you how it all fell apart, let me tell you how it began. Taiye and Kenny were born conjoined at the hip in a small village outside Ibadan 23 years ago. Their mother died during childbirth, and their father, unable to bear the sight of them, abandoned them at the doorstep of their grandmother's compound before disappearing into the night. Their grandmother, Mama Agba, was a woman who knew secrets. Secrets whispered by the wind, secrets buried in the red earth, secrets that danced in the smoke of her evening fires. On the twins' 7th birthday, as the village children threw stones at their window and chanted cruel songs, Mama Agba performed a ritual that would change everything. She called upon the ancient spirits of the forest, offering 7 years of her own life in exchange for a gift for her granddaughters. The spirits accepted. That night, Taiye and Kenny discovered they could do something impossible. When one twin needed to face the world alone, the other could fade, become invisible, incorporeal, a ghost attached to her sister's body. Their physical connection would vanish, and for a time, one could live as if she were whole. But there was a price. The twin who borrowed the body would be beautiful, confident, radiant. The twin left behind would bear the weight of both their imperfections. Her face would warp, her body would twist, and she would become the embodiment of everything the world deemed ugly. And so, for 16 years, they learned to share. They took turns. They were fair. Until Kenny met David. The deception. It started innocently enough. Kenny had borrowed the body to attend a friend's wedding at the Echo Hotel. Taiye stayed home, her face grotesquely distorted, her body hunched, waiting in their small apartment in Yaba as she always did. Kenny was supposed to return by midnight. She came back at 4 a.m., glowing, breathless, and in love. "His name is David," she whispered as she released the body, and Taiye felt herself become whole again, watching as Kenny's form separated and her own face returned to its natural state. Plain, yes, but human. "Kenny, we have rules." I know. I'll just see him one more time, just to explain that I'm traveling, that's all." But one time became 2. 2 became 10. 10 became every evening. And Taiye stayed home, night after night, her body twisted and deformed, her face a mask of features that belonged in nightmares. She would sit by their window, watching Lagos move without her, watching life happen to everyone but her. "Just one more week," Kenny would promise. "He's about to introduce me to his family. After that, I'll tell him the truth. After that, we'll go back to sharing." But Kenny never told him the truth. 3 months passed, then 6. Taiye stopped asking when she'd get her turn. She stopped looking in mirrors. She stopped hoping. Until the day everything changed. It was a Tuesday evening. Kenny was running late for a date with David, some fancy restaurant in Victoria Island. She was frantic, applying lipstick, spraying perfume, borrowing the body without even asking any more. "Kenny, please," Taiye begged, her voice distorted by her deformed mouth. "It's been 4 months since I've gone outside. I just want to go to the market, just for an hour. Just after tonight, I promise. David's going to propose. I can feel it. Tomorrow we'll figure everything out. Tomorrow I'll share again." Kenny rushed out the door, and in her haste, she forgot something crucial. In their 16 years of sharing the body, there was one absolute rule. The twin who stayed behind had to remain in the apartment. The connection between them could stretch across the rooms of their home, but no farther. If the distance became too great, the magic would break in unpredictable ways. Taiye, consumed by loneliness and rage, made a decision. She left the apartment. She only meant to go downstairs, just to sit outside, just to feel the sun on her face, even if that face was monstrous. But as she crossed the threshold of their compound, she felt it, a violent, tearing sensation, like her soul was being ripped in two. Across the city, Kenny collapsed in the middle of the restaurant, and when she woke up, she was back in their apartment. But Taiye wasn't there. Taiye's head was there, just her head, sitting on their dining table, breathing, blinking, alive. And somewhere in Victoria Island, their body was wandering the streets alone, with nobody inside it. "What did you do?" Kenny screamed, her ghostly form flickering in the apartment. "I went outside," Taiye said, her head speaking, tears streaming down her grotesque cheeks. "I just wanted to feel the sun, Kenny. I just wanted 5 minutes of being alive." The body was found 3 hours later by police, walking in circles near the Lekki toll gate, empty-eyed and non-responsive. David, frantic and confused, had called the authorities when his girlfriend collapsed and then vanished from the hospital. When the body was returned to their apartment, both sisters realized the horrifying truth. Neither of them could enter it. The magic had broken. The connection had severed. Kenny's ghost was trapped in their home, invisible to everyone but Taiye. Taiye's head sat on the table, conscious and aware, but unable to move or feel anything below her neck. And their body stood in the corner like a mannequin, breathing but empty, waiting for a soul that could no longer claim it. "We need Mama Agba," Taiye whispered. But Mama Agba had died 2 years ago. The secrets died with her. Or so they thought. David came looking for answers. The woman he loved had collapsed, disappeared, and then reappeared as a blank shell. The hospital had no explanations. The police had no answers. So he went to the address he'd found in her phone, the apartment in Yaba he'd never been invited to. When Taiye heard the knock, she panicked. She couldn't let him see her this way. She called out for Kenny to hide, but Kenny's ghost was already trying to possess the body, desperate to send David away, to protect what little remained of her dream. But she couldn't enter the body. It rejected her. David knocked again. "Kenny, please, I know you're in there. Whatever's happening, we can face it together." Kenny, in a moment of desperation, made a choice. She possessed her sister's severed head. For just a moment, Taiye's grotesque features smoothed. The distortions faded. She became the beautiful face David had fallen in love with. "David," she spoke with Kenny's voice through Taiye's mouth, "you have to leave, please. You can't see me like this." "I don't care what you look like," he said through the door. "I love you, not your face, not your body, you." And in that moment, something shifted in the universe, because David's words contained a magic that Mama Agba never knew. The magic of being seen, of being loved, not despite your flaws, but including them. The apartment door swung open on its own. David stepped inside and saw everything. The severed head on the table, the empty body in the corner, and the shimmering, ghostly form of Kenny flickering in and out of existence. He didn't run. He didn't scream. He walked to the table, knelt before Taiye's head and said, "Tell me how to help." Taiye told him everything, the conjoinment, the magic, the years of sharing, Kenny's betrayal, her own desperate mistake. "There's a woman," Taiye said finally, "in Osogbo. Mama Agba spoke of her once. Her name is Iya Inla. She knows the old magic." David didn't hesitate. He packed the head carefully in a basket, propped the empty body in his car, and drove through the night with Kenny's ghost flickering in the passenger seat. They found Iya Inla in a compound by the Osun River, ancient and knowing, her eyes like pools of oil. She looked at the three of them, the severed head, the empty body, and the wandering spirit, and laughed. "You broke the magic with selfishness," she said, pointing at Kenny, "and you broke it with defiance," she said, pointing at Taiye. "Now you come to me to fix what you destroyed." "Please," David said, "I love them, both of them. Whatever they were, whatever they did, they deserve to live." Iya Inla's expression softened. "Love," she muttered, "always love. It breaks everything and fixes everything." She told them the price. To make them whole again, to give them separate bodies, someone would have to sacrifice their own future. 7 years of life. The same price Mama Agba had paid for their original magic. David stepped forward. "Take mine." "No!" both sisters shouted in unison, Kenny from her ghostly throat, Taiye from her severed mouth. But Iya Inla raised her hand. "The sacrifice is not for you to give, young man. It must come from them." She turned to the sisters. "One of you must give 7 years so the other can be free. Choose." Taiye spoke first. "Take mine. Kenny deserves to be with David. She deserves to be beautiful, to be loved. I've always been the ugly one, the forgotten one. Let her be happy." "No!" Kenny's ghost shimmered with intensity. "Take mine. Taiye has suffered because of me. I stole her life for my own happiness. I'm the selfish one. I'm the monster. She deserves to be free." Iya Inla smiled. "Finally, finally, you both understand." She raised her staff and the Osun River began to glow. "Because you both chose to sacrifice for the other, the spirits will grant you mercy. You will both live. You will both be separate, but you will both give 3 years, not 7, and you will both carry the scars of what you've learned." The magic exploded around them in golden light. When the light faded, 2 women stood by the river. Taiye was no longer grotesque, but she wasn't beautiful either. She was herself, plain, ordinary, real. She had a small scar running down her left cheek, a reminder of the magic that had once bound her. Kenny was no longer radiant, but she wasn't plain either. She was herself, pretty but not perfect. She had a scar on her right hip, where she and her sister had once been joined. They stood in separate bodies for the first time in their lives, and the weight of that freedom was terrifying. David looked between them, confused. "Which one of you is—" "Both of us," Taiye said. "And neither of us," Kenny finished. They spent the next hour explaining everything, the dates, the conversations, the dreams and fears and hopes that David thought he'd shared with one woman. "I fell in love with Kenny," David said slowly, "but I fell in love with who she was when she talked about her sister, when she mentioned staying home to take care of family, when she said she understood what it meant to feel invisible." He turned to Taiye. "I fell in love with both of you. I just didn't know it." 3 years later. The wedding took place in the same compound in Osogbo where they'd been given their freedom. But it wasn't the wedding anyone expected. David married Kenny on a Saturday morning, in a small ceremony by the river, with Taiye standing as maid of honor. And then, in the evening, Taiye married Adebayo, the kind, quiet man who owned the bookshop in Yaba, who had loved her plain face and sharp mind from the moment she'd finally walked into his store with her own 2 legs. 2 couples, 2 weddings, one family bound not by flesh but by choice. As the sun set over Osogbo, Kenny took her sister's hand, a hand that was no longer her own, that existed in a body separate and sovereign. "I'm sorry," Kenny whispered, "for all those months, for stealing your life." "I'm sorry too," Taiye said, "for not telling you sooner how much I was hurting." They stood together, 2 souls who had once shared everything, now learning to share nothing but love. And in the distance, Iya-in-law watched from her window and smiled. Because the greatest magic isn't the power to share a body, it's the courage to share a truth. But wait, there's one more thing. 3 years passed in peace. But on the morning of Taiye and Adebayo's anniversary, Taiye awoke to find a small mark on her hip, the same place where her scar had been. It was glowing. She rushed to Kenny's house across town and found her sister sitting in her kitchen, staring at her own glowing scar on her right hip. They looked at each other in horror. "Iya-in-law said the magic was broken," Kenny whispered. "She said we'd carry scars," Taiye replied. "She never said the magic was gone." And then, as if summoned by their words, both women heard it, a voice carried on the wind, ancient and knowing. "Magic is never gone, daughters. It only sleeps, and what sleeps can always wake. When you need each other most, the bond will return. But this time, you choose when. You choose how. The power is yours." The scars stopped glowing, and both sisters smiled, because for the first time in their lives, magic wasn't a curse. It was a choice.